He's leaving again. That was the first thought that crossed my mind as I watched Daniel standing by the closet, folding his shirts with the same careful precision he used when we first met. Only now, there was no warmth in it, just habit. His movements were quiet, efficient, and almost distant. The sound of the zipper on his suitcase used to mean adventure. Now it only meant absence. 3 days, he said, without looking up. Just a quick client meeting in Chicago. I nodded. I always nodded. That's what our marriage had become. Me agreeing, him leaving, and silence filling in the spaces where laughter used to live. We had been married for 12 years. The first 6 were golden. Small apartment, big dreams, dinners that ended in shared laughter and tangled hands. But somewhere between promotions and deadlines, love had become a routine neither of us dared to question. Now, every time he packed his bag, it felt like watching him slowly erase himself from our life. I tried to smile as he slipped his laptop into his briefcase. "You'll call when you land?" "Of course," he said, the same way he always did. But lately, those calls had become shorter, colder. Sometimes he'd forget entirely, texting hours later with a simple, "Busy day, talk tomorrow." It wasn't just the calls, it was everything. The cologne on his shirt had changed, something deeper, muskier, not the brand I bought him for his birthday last year. His phone, once left carelessly on the counter, was now always face down. And just last week, I'd noticed he'd changed the password on his laptop. Little things, small cracks that shouldn't mean much, but somehow they did. I told myself it was work, that stress changes people, that he was still the man who once woke me at midnight just to watch the first snowfall. But when you share a life with someone, you learn to hear the words they don't say. And lately, Daniel's silence was deafening. That night, after he fell asleep, I lay awake beside him, staring at the faint glow of his phone charging on the nightstand. The rhythm of his breathing was calm, steady in a way mine wasn't. I wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, to ask if we were still us. But the distance between us felt like an ocean, and I didn't know how to swim across it anymore. At 2 a.m., I got up, made tea, and sat at the kitchen table. The steam rose and blurred the reflection of my face in the dark window. I looked tired. No, not tired. Faded. We used to talk about everything. Now we talked about bills, schedules, logistics. Love had turned into management. Maybe that's how marriages die. Not in one big explosion, but in quiet neglect. The next morning, as he showered, I went into the study to grab his charger for him. His laptop was open. I didn't mean to look, I swear I didn't, but the screen blinked awake when I brushed against the mouse. And there it was. Hotel confirmation, the Grand Marlowe, room 806, New York City. My breath caught. New York? But he said Chicago. I stared at the email, the bold letters blurring as my pulse quickened. My first thought wasn't even betrayal. It was confusion. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the meeting had been moved. But why wouldn't he tell me? I scrolled down. The booking was made under his personal email, not his work one. His personal one. My throat tightened. It could mean anything, or it could mean exactly what I was afraid it did. I closed the laptop quickly, as if the screen might accuse me of something. I felt sick. When he walked in, still toweling his hair, I forced a smile. "Got everything packed?" "Yeah," he said. "Flight's in 2 hours. I'll text you when I land." I wanted to say, "Where are you really going, Daniel?" I wanted to say, "Why can't I recognize you anymore?" But the words stuck. Instead, I handed him his charger. "Don't forget this." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile people give out of politeness. "Thanks." The drive to the airport was quiet. Usually, we'd talk about little things, what to eat when he came back, maybe a movie night. Today, even the radio seemed too loud. When we pulled up to the terminal, he leaned over and kissed my forehead. It was gentle, but mechanical, like a gesture he remembered but no longer felt. He said, "I'll call tonight." "Okay," I whispered. I watched him walk away through the glass doors, tall and composed, like a man who had everything under control. My husband, the man I thought I knew better than anyone. The automatic doors closed behind him, and I sat there for a long moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, heartbeat loud in my ears. Something inside me shifted then. It wasn't just suspicion, it was fear, the kind that whispers, "You're about to lose everything, and you won't even understand why." I started the car and drove home in silence. The city moved around me. Horns, people, motion, but I felt completely still, trapped in a slow ache I couldn't name. When I reached home, his coffee cup was still on the counter, his slippers by the door. The echo of his absence filled the air. For the first time in years, I didn't text him, "Safe flight." I didn't call to say, "I miss you already." I just stood by the window, staring at the empty street. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room. And as the evening light turned the kitchen gold, I whispered to no one. For the first time in years, I didn't say goodbye. I watched him walk away.
I didn't sleep that night. The house felt too quiet, as if even the walls were holding their breath. I sat by the window, watching headlights flicker across the empty street. Every time a car passed, I imagined it was him coming back to tell me it was all a misunderstanding. But he didn't come back. Instead, my mind played loops of questions that had no answers. Why lie about New York? Why use a personal card? Who was he meeting? I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was a surprise trip. Maybe he didn't want to worry me. But a small, cruel voice inside me whispered what I was afraid to say aloud. What if it isn't work at all? By sunrise, I was still at the table, my cup of tea long cold. I felt fragile, like a glass someone had dropped but hadn't yet noticed was cracked. That's when my phone buzzed, a text from Maya. "Morning. You okay? You sounded off yesterday." I hesitated before replying. I'd never told anyone about my doubts before, not even her, my best friend since college. But something inside me gave in. I think Daniel's lying to me. She called almost instantly. What happened? Her voice was still rough with sleep, but it carried that protective tone I'd always relied on. I told her everything. The trips, the new cologne, the locked phone, the hotel booking. There was a pause on her end. Then, "Do you want to know the truth, or do you want to keep pretending?" That question hit harder than I expected. "I don't know," I whispered. "Yes, you do," she said gently. "You've been holding your breath too long. Maybe it's time to finally exhale." I laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. And what if the truth destroys everything? Then at least it'll be over. You deserve peace, not paranoia. Her words echoed in my head long after we hung up. By mid-morning, I'd made up my mind. If he was lying to me, I had to see it with my own eyes. I couldn't live in half-truths anymore. I opened my laptop, heart pounding, and typed the hotel name I'd seen in his email, the Grand Marlowe, New York City. It was a boutique-style hotel, elegant and modern, the kind of place for couples getaways or luxury conferences. My throat tightened. Was he there with someone? I clicked book a room. There was a single suite available, room 903, one floor above his. I hovered over the confirm button for a long time. My hands were shaking. This wasn't who I was. I'd never snooped through his things, never doubted him so deeply before. But marriage, I'd learned, doesn't end with a fight. It ends with silence and the slow death of trust. Finally, I pressed confirm. The email came through instantly. My stomach turned when I saw the booking confirmation. Check-in that afternoon. I closed my laptop and leaned back in the chair. The decision was made. When Maya called again around noon, I told her, "You're really going?" she asked, half in disbelief. "Yes. What if you find something you can't unsee? Then at least I'll stop imagining worse." There was a pause on her end. Then her voice softened. "Record everything. Stay calm. And if you can, don't confront him right away. Just observe." I smiled faintly. "You sound like a detective." "No, I sound like your friend who's tired of seeing you hurt." Her words echoed in my head long after we hung up. The drive to New York was a blur. Rain had started to fall, soft and steady, drumming against the windshield like a nervous heartbeat. The wipers moved rhythmically, almost hypnotic. My thoughts kept circling back to the same image. Daniel's face, the way he smiled when he left, that gentle, practiced expression that once made me feel safe. I wanted to hate him, but hate felt too heavy. What I felt instead was hollow. Somewhere along the highway, I realized I wasn't chasing revenge. I was chasing clarity. By the time the skyline appeared in the distance, dusk was already creeping in. The city glowed, neon and noise, alive in a way my heart wasn't. I checked into the hotel quietly, under my maiden name. The lobby smelled of jasmine and polished wood. Couples laughed softly at the bar. Businessmen typed on laptops. Life went on around me, oblivious. The receptionist smiled politely. "Welcome to the Grand Marlowe. Staying one night?" "3, I said. My voice sounded strange, detached. She handed me my key card, room 903. I rode the elevator alone. My reflection in the mirror looked calm, but my pulse was racing. I couldn't tell if I was more terrified of catching him with someone or of finding nothing at all. The doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped into the carpeted hallway, my suitcase wheels whispering against the floor. My room was on the right. Across from it, 2 doors down, was room 806, his room. For a long moment, I just stood there staring at the number. My chest ached with the weight of every memory we'd built together, every lie that might now unravel them. A maid passed by, humming softly, pushing her cart. I smiled faintly and turned my key. Inside, the room was beautiful. Large windows, soft lighting, elegant furnishings, but I barely saw any of it. I walked straight to the window where I could see part of the street below. He'd be here soon. I didn't know what I'd do when I saw him. Part of me hoped I'd catch him in a lie, that the anger would be easier to bear than this gnawing uncertainty. But another part, the quiet, desperate part, hoped there was an explanation that made sense, something that could still save us. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands clenched in my lap, listening to the rain against the glass. My heart felt like it was made of two halves, one preparing for war, the other praying for mercy. Maybe I was foolish. Maybe I was brave. I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that tomorrow I'd have my answer. And whatever that answer was, it would change everything.
The first night passed like a long-held breath. I barely slept, just sat near the window, watching the rain slide down the glass, each drop catching bits of the city's neon light. Below, taxis honked, umbrellas hurried past, and life went on as if my world hadn't quietly fractured. By morning, I was numb. I ordered coffee from room service but barely touched it. The taste of guilt was stronger. I kept thinking, what if he finds out I followed him? What would I even say? That I didn't trust you? That I thought you were lying? But wasn't he? At 9 a.m., I heard movement in the hallway. A rolling suitcase. A familiar rhythm of footsteps that made my heart jump. I stood, careful not to make a sound, and peered through the peephole. It was him, Daniel. He looked exactly the same, and nothing like the man I knew. His hair was a little messier, his eyes tired. He wore a plain black coat and carried a paper bag that looked too casual for a business trip. No briefcase, no laptop bag, just groceries. Groceries. My breath caught as he passed my door, his reflection briefly visible in the glossy wall panel. There was no trace of guilt or excitement, just exhaustion. He didn't go toward the elevators. Instead, he took a turn at the end of the hall and disappeared through a side corridor marked Residential Wing, Authorized Access. A strange part of the hotel, hidden behind a glass door with a key padlock. My fingers trembled as I gripped the door handle after he vanished. I didn't have a code, of course, but I caught it before it closed and slipped inside. The corridor was quieter, narrower. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and lavender, the kind of sterile scent that doesn't belong in hotels. There were no numbers on the doors here, just small nameplates. And at the end of the hall, I saw it. Room 217, Emily Carter. He knocked softly, then entered. I froze. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone in that eerie, muffled hallway. My pulse was deafening. My mind started building pictures I didn't want to see. Another woman, maybe younger, someone who made him smile the way he hadn't smiled at me in years. But that word, Emily, stuck out. I'd never heard him mention anyone by that name. I stood there for what felt like an hour, though it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. Eventually, fear won. I turned and hurried back to my room, my thoughts spiraling faster than my footsteps. By noon, my hands had stopped shaking, but my heart hadn't. I sat on the bed, staring at the door. Every instinct told me to confront him, to barge into that room and demand the truth. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to understand what I was walking into. Instead, I watched. From the hallway camera near the elevators, I could see the reflection of that side door in the mirrored wall. Every few hours, Daniel would come and go. Sometimes he carried bags, flowers, soup containers, even folded blankets. He wasn't sneaking around like a man having an affair. He moved with a strange tenderness, like someone who was caring for someone. Still, the questions wouldn't stop. Who was Emily Carter, and why was he using another name, Daniel Cross, to check in? At one point, I saw him pause by the lobby coffee stand. He looked pale, distracted. The barista handed him 2 cups, and he smiled faintly, a tired, kind smile I hadn't seen in months. I pressed my palm against the window, tears burning my eyes. That small smile hurt more than any lie, because it wasn't meant for me. That evening, I decided to get closer.
I pulled my hair back, slipped on a plain scarf, and went down to the cafe near the lobby. From there, I could see the elevator and the hallway leading toward the residential wing. I pretended to read a magazine while my coffee grew cold. Every sound made me flinch. Then, around 7 p.m., I saw him again. He entered through the side door, his shoulders heavy, his gaze low. He looked sad, like a man returning from a place he didn't want to leave. He stopped by the front desk to ask for something. I couldn't hear what, but the receptionist handed him a small brown package. He thanked her quietly and disappeared back through the glass door. Minutes later, I followed. The keypad still clicked from his entry, and I slipped in before it locked. The hallway was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of lilies. As I approached room 217, my heartbeat thudded in my ears. I pressed my ear against the door, desperate for something, anything, that would tell me what was happening inside. At first, there was silence. Then, a sound, a soft, fragile voice, a girl's voice. "I thought you wouldn't come today," she said, barely above a whisper. "I promised, didn't I? I won't leave you again. Sweetheart." The word tore through me. I staggered back, hand over my mouth, tears blurring the hallway lights. There it was, the confirmation I thought I wanted, but couldn't bear to hear. He was calling another woman sweetheart. I stumbled back to my room, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't even realize I was crying until I caught myself in the mirror, eyes swollen, cheeks flushed, like a stranger's face staring back at me. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to breathe. My mind ran wild with images. Her face, her hands in his, their secret meetings, the lies that had layered themselves over our marriage like dust. But one thought kept returning, small and piercing. She sounded young. Not the voice of a woman in love, but of someone fragile, uncertain. I pushed that thought away. My heart didn't care about logic anymore. It only knew pain. I opened my phone and started typing a message to him. "I know where you are. I know what you were doing." But I couldn't send it. My hands froze above the screen because part of me still wanted to believe there was a reason, something other than betrayal. Instead, I deleted the words, turned off my phone, and whispered into the silence, "I'll find out the truth tomorrow, whatever it costs." The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the glass like a warning I couldn't hear. And somewhere down the hall, behind a closed door, my husband called another woman sweetheart. The next morning, the world looked deceptively calm. Sunlight poured into my hotel room through half-drawn curtains, casting gold on untouched sheets. It should have been a new day, yet I felt suspended in the same restless night. I hadn't slept. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard his voice again, gentle, tender, calling someone sweetheart. That single word echoed louder than any confession. By 8 a.m., I was pacing. I told myself I would confront him today, not sneak, not hide, just ask, face to face. But then, something inside me hesitated. It wasn't fear of his answer. It was fear of seeing who he had become. I didn't recognize the man I'd been married to for 12 years anymore. I waited until I was sure he had left room 217. Then I went back to that quiet hallway, heart hammering against my ribs like a warning drum. The door looked harmless in daylight. White wood, a brass handle polished to perfection. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, before finally raising my hand and knocking. No answer. I tried again, softer this time. The corridor stayed still. Something inside me, call it desperation, call it intuition, made me press the handle. It turned, unlocked. I pushed the door open an inch at a time, expecting voices, movement, maybe a confrontation. But there was only silence and the faint rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor. The room was not a hotel suite. It was a hospital room, disguised within the hotel's residential wing. A hospital bed stood near the window, sunlight spilling over soft white sheets. Beside it sat a small table covered in medication, flowers, and a framed photo of a young woman. And on the bed, a girl, maybe 19, maybe 20, fragile, her skin almost translucent, dark hair fanning out across the pillow. She was asleep, or perhaps too tired to be anything else. I stepped closer, my breath trembling. There were drawings taped to the wall, pencil sketches of faces, a few landscapes, and one that made my knees weaken. Daniel. Her drawings of him, lifelike, almost reverent. Each one caught a softness in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. On the bedside table, next to the flowers, was a notebook. Its cover read, "For my father, Emily Carter." Father. The word slammed into me like a wave of cold water. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself, the room spinning around me. Father? I stared at the sleeping girl, at the oxygen tube near her nose, the IV drip by her arm, and the pieces began to rearrange themselves in ways I couldn't quite accept. He wasn't cheating. He wasn't sneaking around for pleasure or escape. He was here for her. But why didn't he tell me? Why hide this? The questions burned as I took another step closer, drawn by a mix of heartbreak and curiosity. I wanted to touch her hand, to know who she was, to understand. Just then, a voice behind me froze me in place. It was Daniel. I turned slowly. His face was pale, shock and panic tangled in his expression. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. He looked smaller somehow, like the weight of the secret had carved years off him. My voice cracked. I saw you. I followed you here. He closed his eyes briefly as if the words confirmed the one thing he feared. So you know. He know what? My throat tightened. That you've been lying to me. That you've been calling another woman sweetheart? He flinched at that, his eyes darkening, not with anger, but with something heavier. Sarah, he whispered, stepping closer. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Tell me who she is before I lose my mind. He glanced toward the bed, then back at me. His lips trembled as he spoke. She's my daughter. The air left my lungs. Your what? He swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. From before you, from years ago. I didn't know about her until 6 months ago. I stumbled back, every word slicing through the air like broken glass. He continued, voice shaking. Her mother, someone I dated in college, she never told me. She got sick. When she passed, she left a letter telling me Emily existed, that she was dying, and she didn't want her daughter to die alone. My mouth went dry. The world tilted around me, the sterile smell of antiseptic turning sharp. Why didn't you tell me? I whispered. Because I didn't know how, he said, his voice breaking. I was afraid of losing you. I thought if you knew I'd kept something like this, you'd never forgive me. And Emily, she didn't want anyone to know. She was embarrassed, ashamed. She thought I had a family now and didn't want to intrude. He looked at me with tearful eyes, pleading. I just wanted to be there for her. She's so young, Sarah. She doesn't have anyone else. The silence that followed was unbearable. My anger dissolved into something worse, grief. Not for me, not even for him, but for the girl lying between us, too fragile to even open her eyes. Everything I thought I knew had been wrong. Daniel hadn't lied to betray me. He'd lied to protect me from his guilt, from her pain, from the complexity of a past he'd never resolved. I looked at the girl again. Her chest rose and fell softly, her hand twitching beneath the blanket as if she were dreaming. I reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. She looked so peaceful, so heartbreakingly young. "Does she know about me?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "She knows you're my wife. She wanted to meet you, but I didn't know how to make that happen." I turned back to him. "And what about your business trips, the missed anniversaries? Were those all her too?" He hesitated, guilt shadowing his face. "Most of them, yes." The answer hurt, but this time not in the way betrayal hurts. It hurt because I understood. I sank into the chair beside the bed, my tears falling silently. "Why didn't you trust me with this?" He crouched beside me, his voice trembling. "Because I didn't want to see that look in your eyes, the one you're giving me now. I didn't want pity or disappointment. I just wanted to do something good for once." And then I saw it. All the late nights, the exhaustion, the quiet distance between us. It wasn't detachment. It was pain he couldn't share. Daniel had been splitting himself in two, husband and father, carrying the burden of both lives until it broke him. For a long time, neither of us spoke. We just sat there, the three of us. Me, the man I loved, and the daughter he'd only just found. In that stillness, I realized something painful, but pure. Sometimes love isn't about honesty. It's about mercy. And mercy, in its cruelest form, is silence. For hours after that conversation, I sat in silence beside Emily's bed. The soft hum of the heart monitor filled the space between my thoughts, steady and fragile, like the sound of a clock counting down. Daniel stayed near the window, his posture weary, shoulders hunched forward, as if years of guilt had finally found their place to rest. Outside, the city moved in slow motion. Buses, people, umbrellas, all of it distant, unreachable. Every time I looked at him, I saw not a liar, but a man quietly collapsing under the weight of what he hadn't said. When he finally spoke again, his voice was barely more than a whisper. "She doesn't have long, Sarah." The words froze the air between us. He turned toward me, his eyes red-rimmed and wet. "The doctors gave her maybe 2 months, but she doesn't know that. She still thinks she can get better." My throat tightened. "And you've been here through it all?" He nodded slowly. "Every week, I pay for this room. Well, the care center covers part of it. It's quiet here, away from the noise. She likes the view of the river." He looked toward the window, where the faint shimmer of water reflected through the glass. I couldn't save her mother. I thought, maybe I could save her some peace. Something inside me cracked open. This wasn't the face of a betrayer. This was a man living with an open wound he never showed me. I took a long, shaky breath and whispered, "You should have told me." He said, voice trembling, "I wanted to. So many times. I'd pick up my phone or look at you across the dinner table, and the words would just die." "Why?" "Because I thought you'd see me differently. Because I didn't want you to think I was hiding a child or that I'd failed someone before you.
I didn't want you to look at me with pity." I let the words sink in. The pain of his silence was real, but so was the fear beneath it. Daniel had always been proud, a man who carried responsibility like armor. Admitting weakness, admitting regret, it wasn't something he knew how to do. So instead of letting me in, he chose distance, and I mistook that distance for betrayal. Emily stirred in her sleep then, her fingers twitching faintly. I looked down and gently adjusted her blanket. Daniel watched me, eyes softening. "She looks like you when you're tired," I murmured, half to myself. He smiled, the faintest trace of light breaking through his exhaustion. "She does, doesn't she?" It hit me then. This girl, this stranger, was a living link to the man I loved before he hardened. The part of him that used to laugh easily, who used to bring me flowers just because. Somewhere in her face, in the delicate slope of her chin, I could see that echo. And I realized how much of him I'd stopped seeing long before this secret came out. Around noon, a nurse entered quietly to check Emily's vitals. She smiled at me, mistaking me for family, and I didn't correct her. For the first time, the word family didn't sting. It felt right. When the nurse left, Daniel came to sit beside me. "She's been asking about you," he said softly. "I told her about you, how kind you are, how patient. She said she wanted to meet you, but I told her, not yet, not until I could explain everything." My throat tightened. "She knows about us?" He nodded, "And she's grateful. She told me she doesn't want to take anything from you. She just wants to know what it feels like to have a father, before it's too late." I swallowed hard, the tears returning. "She deserves that." He reached for my hand then, hesitant, unsure if he still had the right to touch me. And despite everything, I didn't pull away. His hand was cold, trembling slightly, but familiar. For the first time in months, I felt the truth beneath his skin. He was breaking. We sat like that for a long time, watching the faint movements of the girl who tied our broken pieces together. Finally, I asked, "Why now? Why tell me today?" He looked at me with a kind of quiet surrender. "Because I couldn't keep lying anymore. And because she asked to see you." "Me?" He nodded. "She wants to say thank you for letting me be her father." The words were too heavy. I turned my face away, pressing my fingers against my lips to hold back a sob. It wasn't forgiveness that filled me. It was something more complicated. Pity, sadness, love, all twisted together until they were impossible to tell apart. That evening, I stayed. I didn't plan to, but when Daniel left to grab dinner, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. I sat beside Emily, tracing my fingers along the edge of her sketchbook. There were drawings of the river, of the nurses, of Daniel reading to her by the bed, and tucked between the pages, one sketch of me. I gasped softly. She had drawn me from a photo, maybe one Daniel showed her. The caption beneath it read, "Dad's wife, she looks kind." Tears slid silently down my face. In that moment, I understood something I hadn't all along. Sometimes the lies we tell aren't to hurt, but to shield. Daniel hadn't lied to escape me. He'd lied to spare me from this hospital room, this slow goodbye, this unbearable compassion that breaks you in silence. He hadn't cheated. He had simply loved in secret.
When Daniel returned, I was still crying. He didn't ask why. He just sat beside me, holding my hand until the light outside faded into gold. At some point, I whispered, "I want to help." He turned to me, startled. "Help?" I nodded. "Whatever time she has left, you shouldn't carry it alone. Neither should she." The way he looked at me then, like he couldn't believe I was real, broke something open between us. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against mine, and whispered, "I don't deserve you." I smiled through the tears. "Maybe not, but she does." And that's how it began, our quiet redemption. Not through words, not through forgiveness, but through small acts of love in a room that smelled of lilies and loss. Because sometimes the truth doesn't destroy you. It simply changes what you thought love was. The first time Emily opened her eyes and saw me, the world slowed. It was late morning, the kind of soft light that turns everything golden for a few moments before fading into the gray of day. Daniel had stepped out to talk to the doctor, leaving me alone in the quiet hum of the room. I was sitting by the window, pretending to read a magazine I couldn't focus on, when I heard the faintest voice. "Are you her?" I turned, startled. Emily was awake. Her eyes, clear but tired, were fixed on me. I felt my throat close up before I could find words. "Her?" I echoed softly. She gave a small, trembling smile. "Dad's wife?" For a moment, I couldn't breathe. All I could do was nod. "Yes, I'm Sarah." She gave a small, trembling smile. "You look exactly like he said." I forced a small laugh, though my heart was breaking. "I hope that's a good thing." "It is," she whispered, her voice thin but steady. "He says you make him calm, that you're the reason he's still standing." I blinked back tears, my chest tightening. I wanted to tell her that she was wrong, that he was the strong one, the one who carried everything alone, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I reached for her hand, careful and slow. Her fingers were cold, but she squeezed mine faintly, like she was afraid I'd disappear. That moment, her fragile smile, her quiet strength, broke me in a way betrayal never could. Daniel walked in just then, carrying a tray of soup and tea. When he saw us, his steps faltered. "Hey, sweetheart," he said softly, his voice warm in a way I hadn't heard in months. "You're awake." Emily's eyes lit up. "Dad!" The word came out small, yet it filled the entire room. Daniel froze for a second, then hurried to her bedside. He brushed her hair from her forehead and kissed it gently. "I told you I'd come back, didn't I?" She giggled, a tiny breathy sound that somehow made my eyes sting. "You always do." Watching them together was both beautiful and unbearable. I wanted to be angry at him for all the lies, but how could I be, standing there while he fed his dying daughter soup like she was the most precious thing in the world? The truth was, she was. Later, when Emily fell back asleep, Daniel and I stepped into the hallway. He looked drained, like every smile cost him something. "She likes you," he said quietly. I nodded. "She's incredible." He smiled faintly. "She shouldn't have to be, not at her age." There it was again, that guilt, heavy and unshakable. He leaned against the wall, running a hand through his hair. "Every time she smiles at me, I think about all the birthdays I missed, the nights she cried without me there, and the woman who raised her, dying, believing I didn't care. I keep asking myself if I even deserve this time with her." I looked at him, my heart aching. "You're here now. That's what matters." He shook his head. "Too little, too late." "No," I said softly. "You're doing what most people wouldn't, staying even when it hurts. That's not too little. That's love." He looked at me then, really looked at me. And for a second, I saw the man I'd married, the one who used to believe love could fix anything. "Sarah."
You should hate me for what I did. I did, I admitted, but hate doesn't survive truth. Only pain does. And I can live with pain. His eyes shimmered. You're too good for me. I smiled faintly. Maybe, but she needs both of us right now. So that's what she'll get. From that day on, I went to the hotel every morning. Sometimes I brought fresh flowers, sometimes just coffee and silence. Emily loved to draw, even when her hands trembled too much to hold a pencil, so I brought her sketch pads and colored pencils. She'd draw the river, the sunset, or sometimes us. Once, she handed me a drawing of Daniel and me standing side by side, our hands touching. I stared at the picture, a lump forming in my throat. She saw something I'd been blinded by pain to notice. Love still existed between us, just quieter now. But the more time I spent there, the more I noticed Daniel fading. He never complained, but I could see it. The sleepless nights, the pale skin, the dark circles under his eyes. He was pouring everything he had into being strong for her, and I knew one day he'd break. One evening, as the city lights flickered on outside, I found him sitting by her bed, head bowed. Emily had just fallen asleep. I placed a hand on his shoulder, and he flinched slightly, as if pulled from somewhere deep inside his thoughts. She asked me today if I was scared, he said quietly. Of what? Of losing her. He looked up at me, tears in his eyes, and I lied. I told her I wasn't, that I was just grateful for the time we had. But the truth is, Sarah, I'm terrified. His voice broke on the last word. I knelt beside him, pressing my forehead against his arm. You don't have to pretend anymore, not with me. He didn't answer right away, just reached out and took my hand, holding it like an anchor in a storm. I don't know how to say goodbye, he whispered. Then don't, I said softly. Not yet. That night, as we sat in silence, I watched his eyes trace every rise and fall of Emily's breathing. It hit me that this quiet vigil, was his redemption. He wasn't the man who lied anymore. He was the man who stayed. When Emily stirred in her sleep, murmuring something incoherent, Daniel leaned forward and whispered, I'm right here, sweetheart. Always. And for the first time, the word sweetheart didn't hurt. It felt like healing. The days that followed blurred together in slow motion. Emily grew weaker, her voice softer, her laughter rarer, but her spirit never left. She'd still ask Daniel to read to her, still smile when I brushed her hair. Once, she looked at me and said, Promise me something? Anything. When I'm gone, she whispered, don't let him be alone. He's been alone his whole life, even when he's with people. I couldn't answer. My voice was lost in the ache rising in my chest. I just nodded, pressing her cold hand to my cheek. And she smiled again, that fragile, glowing smile that carried more grace than pain. That night, when Daniel and I left the hotel, we stood in the rain without umbrellas. He looked up at the sky and said, She's stronger than both of us. I nodded, tears mixing with the rain. She got that from you. He smiled weakly, shaking his head. No, she got that from love. And as we walked away from the hotel, I realized what he meant. Love isn't about what you confess. It's about what you endure. And sometimes the truest form of love is learning how to forgive someone who was just trying to do their best with the time they had left. The rain had been falling all evening, soft, steady, and endless, like the sky itself was mourning. By then, the hotel had become familiar to me. The scent of lilies and antiseptic, the hum of distant elevators, the quiet shuffle of nurses moving through the hallways. But that night, something felt different. The air was heavier, still. When I arrived,
Daniel was sitting outside room 217 with his head in his hands. His coat was draped over his knees, his hair damp and his eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion. I knew before he spoke that something had changed. "She's not doing well," he whispered, not looking up. "She's been asking for you." The words hit me like a pulse in the chest. "Me?" He nodded. "She woke up calling your name." Inside, the lights were dimmed. The room was warmer than usual, a soft glow from the lamp beside her bed making everything look like a painting. Tender, fragile, almost too still. Emily lay there, her breath shallow, her lips pale. Her eyes fluttered open when she heard me. "Sarah," she murmured, her voice barely audible. I rushed to her side, kneeling next to the bed. "I'm here, sweetheart." Her small, trembling hand reached out, and I took it without hesitation. It was cold, too cold. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did." Daniel stood near the foot of the bed, trying to smile but failing. His hands were clenched together, his knuckles white. Emily turned her gaze toward him, her lips twitching into the faintest smile. "He's been so scared," she said softly, her eyes returning to me. "You should have seen him, Sarah. He checks if I'm breathing every 10 minutes. I managed a weak laugh through the tears that were already spilling down my cheeks. "That sounds like him." She smiled again, but the effort made her cough, a small, sharp sound that made Daniel flinch. I wiped her lips with a tissue, whispering, "It's okay. Just rest." But she shook her head. "No, not yet. I wanted to see you both, together." She looked between us, her tired eyes glimmering in the lamplight. "You love each other. I can tell. The way you look at each other, it's the same way he looks at me." Daniel took a slow, trembling breath, his eyes falling to the floor. "I used to be jealous of you," she continued, her tone fragile but steady. "When he talked about you, he smiled. I'd never seen him do that before. I thought maybe there wasn't room for me." My heart twisted. I leaned closer, brushing her hair from her forehead. "Oh, Emily, there's always room for love. Always." Her eyes glistened. "That's what I wanted to hear." For a long moment, the only sound was the rain tapping against the window. Soft, rhythmic, like a lullaby. Daniel moved closer, sitting on the other side of the bed. He reached for Emily's hand, the other one, and held it tightly. The three of us stayed like that, our hands intertwined, forming a small circle of warmth in that quiet, sterile room. "I used to dream of this," Emily whispered, her voice fading. "A family. Not perfect, just together." Daniel closed his eyes, his tears falling silently. "I'm so sorry," he murmured, "for all the years you were alone." She smiled faintly. "You're here now. That's all that matters." Her breathing slowed after that. Each inhale seemed to take effort. Each exhale lingered like a whisper. I could feel Daniel's grip tightening, as if he could keep her here by sheer will. When her eyes fluttered open again, they were fixed on me. "Sarah." "Yes, sweetheart?" "Promise me something. Anything." Her lips trembled. "When I'm gone, don't let him forget that he's loved. He forgets sometimes." I bit my lip, unable to speak. She squeezed my hand weakly. "Promise. I promise." Her eyes softened. "Good." And then, with the gentlest sigh, she whispered, "Thank you." For what, I'll never know. For being there. For understanding. For loving him when she couldn't. Her hand went still in mine.
Daniel's breath broke first, a sharp, guttural sound that came from somewhere deep inside him. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to her hand, his body shaking with silent sobs. "Emily, no, please," he whispered. "Sweetheart, stay with me, please." I wrapped my arms around him from behind, holding him as he crumbled. His grief came in waves, unstoppable, raw, almost childlike. He clutched her hand until the nurse gently touched his shoulder and whispered that it was time. But he didn't let go, not for a long while. When he finally did, the nurse covered Emily's body with a white blanket, tucking her in like she was only sleeping. The heart monitor went still. The room felt impossibly quiet. Daniel sat in the chair beside her bed, unmoving, staring at nothing. I sat next to him, our shoulders touching. Neither of us spoke. There was nothing left to say. Outside, the rain kept falling, a soft, endless rhythm that felt like the earth weeping with us. Hours later, when they came to take her body, Daniel stood and kissed her forehead one last time. "I'll find you in every sunrise," he whispered. When the door closed behind them, he turned to me with a look I'll never forget. Hollow, broken, and full of gratitude all at once. "I don't know how to live after this," he said quietly. I took his hand, my own voice trembling. "Then don't. Not yet. Just breathe. I'll remember for both of us until you can." He stared at me for a moment, and then he fell against me, sobbing into my shoulder. I held him, both of us shaking, both emptied of everything but the ache. That night, we didn't go home. We stayed in that room, surrounded by the echo of her laughter, the scent of lilies, and the faint hum of rain on glass. At some point, Daniel whispered, "She called your name before I did." I brushed a tear from his cheek. She knew I'd come. He nodded slowly, closing his eyes. "You were what she wanted me to have when she couldn't stay." And I think that was the moment we both understood. Love doesn't die with people. It lingers in promises, in memories, in the way someone once said your name. When morning came, the rain stopped. A pale ribbon of sunlight spilled across the floor, lighting the spot where Emily's bed had been. Daniel reached for my hand again. This time, it wasn't guilt or sorrow that filled the space between us. It was something quieter, something like peace. And as we stood there, side by side, I whispered to the light, "She kept her promise, Daniel. She made sure you weren't alone."
The world didn't end that night. It just slowed. In the days that followed Emily's passing, everything felt suspended, like the air itself had forgotten how to move. The hotel room was cleared within a day, the sheets stripped, the scent of lilies replaced by something neutral, almost sterile. But for Daniel and me, the emptiness she left behind lingered in every breath. I moved through the motions of life as though walking through water. Each morning, I made coffee, but never drank it. I folded laundry that no one would wear. I answered phone calls I didn't remember making. And every evening, I found Daniel sitting on the porch, staring at nothing, his hands wrapped around a cup gone cold. He didn't speak much at first. Neither did I. Grief, I realized, was its own language, one made of silence, glances, and breaths that catch halfway through. A week after the funeral, I found him in Emily's apartment. He was sitting on the floor, surrounded by her sketches and journals, his back against the wall. The sunlight from the window hit the dust motes floating in the air, turning them into little ghosts of gold. "She loved to draw the sky," he said softly, not looking at me. "Every day, she said the clouds looked different. I never noticed before." I knelt beside him. There was a stack of papers near his knee, pencil drawings of skies, all variations of light and shadow. Some had faint watercolor stains, others tiny notes written in the corner. One sketch caught my eye, a drawing of 3 figures, hand in hand, standing under a twilight sky. A tall man, a woman with a braid, and a little girl between them. On the back, in small, shaky letters, she'd written, "My family, the way it should have been." My throat tightened. I placed a hand over the page, and Daniel's fingers found mine. "She knew," I whispered. He nodded. "She forgave me long before I did." That night, I cooked dinner for us, or tried to. The table felt strange with just 2 plates. Halfway through setting it, Daniel appeared in the doorway, watching me. "You don't have to," he said gently. "I know," I replied, "but I want to." We sat in silence for a while, eating more out of habit than hunger. When I looked up, I saw him staring at the chair across from him, the one where Emily used to sit during her better days. "She used to hum while she ate," he said suddenly, smiling faintly. "Never realized how much I'd missed that sound." "Then hum," I said softly. "She'd like that." He laughed under his breath, the first time I'd heard that sound in weeks. It was weak, but real. For a moment, we weren't grieving. We were remembering. The world outside didn't stop for our pain. Bills came, neighbors asked polite questions. The sky continued to shift from blue to gold to black as if nothing had happened. But inside our small, quiet home, grief became a companion, one that sat beside us at breakfast, followed us on walks, and fell asleep at the foot of the bed. Some nights, I woke to find Daniel sitting up, his face turned toward the window. "I see her in dreams," he said once. "She's always smiling." "Maybe she's trying to tell you something," I murmured. He turned toward me, eyes wet. "Like what?" "That she's okay. That she wants you to be too." He looked down, breathing shakily. "I don't know how." So I took his hand and said, "Then we'll learn together."
2 weeks later, we visited her grave. It was a small plot overlooking a hill, the kind of place that caught the sunset perfectly. Someone, maybe one of her friends, had left fresh daisies there. Daniel knelt, tracing her name on the stone. "I used to be so angry at the world," he said, "at fate, at time, even at myself. But standing here, I think I understand. Love doesn't have to last forever to matter." I watched him, the wind tugging at his hair, the evening light soft on his face. There was a peace there I hadn't seen in years, fragile but real. When he stood, he turned to me and said something I didn't expect. "I lied because I wanted to protect you, Sarah. But I see now, love doesn't need protection. It needs truth." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. "Then no more lies." He took a deep breath and smiled faintly. "No more lies." That evening, as we drove home, the sky turned a deep orange, a color so vivid it looked like fire. Daniel pulled over by the roadside, rolled down the window, and just stared. "She used to say sunsets were God's way of saying good night," he said. I rested my head against the seat. "Then this one's from her." We sat in silence, watching the sky fade from gold to pink to purple. For the first time since everything happened, I felt something gentle stirring in my chest. Not joy, not quite hope, but the faintest sense that maybe we could begin again. In the weeks that followed, Daniel started sketching again. Small things at first, the curve of a tree branch, a bird in flight, the way light hit the kitchen table. He'd never drawn before, but it felt like he was finishing what Emily started. One afternoon, I found him at his desk, carefully adding color to one of her old sky sketches. "She told me once that the sky never repeats itself," he said, "so I thought maybe neither should we." I smiled. "Then let's make a new one." He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the man I fell in love with years ago. Not the broken version, not the haunted one, just him. And maybe that's what grief does when it's done breaking you. It gives you back what really matters, stripped of everything false. We hung the finished drawing above the fireplace a few days later. It was simple. 3 figures standing beneath the dawn sky, holding hands. Daniel titled it "The Morning After the Rain." And as I stood there beside him, the light spilling across the paper, I realized something Emily had known all along. Love isn't about holding on. It's about learning how to let go and still remain connected somehow through every sky that changes.
I found it on a Wednesday, one of those quiet, ordinary afternoons that carry no warning. The kind of day when the light falls softly across the floor and you think you're safe from surprises. Daniel had gone out for groceries. I was cleaning the study, sorting through old files and boxes of papers he never seemed to throw away. The drawer of his desk had always been his private world, full of receipts, half-written notes, and random sketches Emily had done. I wasn't searching for anything, not really. I just wanted to tidy up, to make the space less haunted. And that's when I saw it. A sealed envelope, yellowed slightly at the edges, tucked beneath a folder labeled "Client Reports." My name was written on the front in his handwriting, careful, almost hesitant. "For Sarah. To be opened if I can't tell you myself." I froze. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The edges of the world seemed to blur, sound fading into the hum of my heartbeat. I sat down in his chair, the envelope trembling in my hands. It wasn't dated, no seal, just a simple fold. And yet the weight of it was heavier than anything I'd ever held. I hesitated, afraid of what truth might be inside, afraid that whatever I read would change everything I thought I'd already forgiven. But love and curiosity, I've learned, often share the same heartbeat. So I opened it. "My Sarah, if you're reading this, it means I never found the right words. Or maybe I ran out of time before I could speak them aloud. I've been a coward in many ways. Not because I didn't love you, but because I loved you too much to risk breaking the fragile peace we built. The night I found out about Emily, I didn't tell you because I couldn't bear to see your eyes change. You've always looked at me like I was someone good. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I deserved that. When her mother reached out, she didn't ask for help. She just said she deserves to know who her father is. I went to see her, and when I did, I knew instantly she was mine. Not because of her face, but because of how she looked at the world. Curious, stubborn, and a little too forgiving, just like you. I told myself I'd tell you after the first visit, but then Emily smiled at me and something inside me broke. I thought, if I tell Sarah now, she'll never look at me the same way again. She'll see the man who lied, not the man who's trying to make it right. So I hid it. Every business trip, every excuse, I told myself it was for you, to protect you from a pain that was already mine to carry. But the truth is, it was fear of losing both of you. Emily didn't need a hero. She just needed time. And when the doctor said that time was running out, I knew I couldn't hide anymore. But by then, you had already found me. You always do. That night in the hotel, when I saw you standing in that hallway, I wanted to fall to my knees and tell you everything. But the way you looked at me, it was like looking in a mirror I'd been avoiding for years. You saw me, all of me, and you didn't walk away. You stayed. I don't deserve the grace you've given me, Sarah, but I am grateful for it every day. I don't know how to say thank you for something so big, so undeserved. You didn't just forgive me, you carried me. You carried her too. If I'm gone when you read this, I want you to know you saved me. You saved the part of me that was still capable of love. And I know that sounds small compared to what I took from you, but it's the truest thing I have. Please don't live in my guilt. I spent too many years there, and it's a lonely place. Instead, remember the mornings, the quiet laughter, the skies she painted. That's where I'll be, somewhere between the light and the rain. Love doesn't end, Sarah. It just changes its shape. Sometimes it becomes memory. Sometimes it becomes forgiveness. And sometimes it becomes you. Yours, always, Daniel.
I don't remember how long I sat there after finishing the letter. My hands were trembling, the paper damp from tears. Outside, the light had shifted, turning golden and soft, the hour he always called Emily's time. I read it again, slower this time, tracing the curve of each word, feeling the echoes of his voice in every line. It was like he was there beside me, not as the man who lied or the man who grieved, but simply as Daniel, the man I fell in love with when the world was still kind. The guilt I'd been carrying for him, for not trusting sooner, for resenting him, even after learning the truth, began to unravel. In its place was something gentler. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. He hadn't just written a goodbye. He'd left me a map, a way back to peace. That evening, I went to the hill where Emily was buried. The wind was cool, the horizon painted in fading pink and violet. I sat by the stone and read his letter aloud, my voice shaking but steady. "I think he wanted you to hear this too," I said quietly. "He couldn't have written it if it weren't for you." The leaves rustled, as if the world was answering back. And for a moment, a fleeting, beautiful moment, I swear I felt them both near me. A warmth in the air, a whisper in the trees. The unmistakable peace of love that hasn't ended, only changed its form. When I returned home, I placed the letter in a small wooden frame and set it beside Emily's drawing above the fireplace. 3 figures beneath the dawn sky. 2 pieces of paper, side by side. 2 goodbyes that somehow didn't feel like endings anymore. As the firelight flickered across the ink, I thought about his last line. Love doesn't end, it just changes its shape. Maybe that's what healing is, not moving on, but learning to live in the shape love leaves behind. And that night, for the first time since everything began, I didn't cry when I turned out the light. I smiled, because somewhere beneath the sky Emily once painted, I knew they were both at peace. And maybe, finally, so was I. It's been 6 months since I found Daniel's letter. 6 months since I stood by Emily's grave and whispered goodbye under a sky that looked like it was made of watercolor and forgiveness. Grief doesn't leave the way people think it does. It doesn't pack its bags and go when the tears stop. It lingers quietly,
in the smell of coffee that never gets poured, in the sound of rain on windows, in the sudden ache that appears in the middle of an ordinary day. But something shifted. The weight didn't vanish, it just became lighter, easier to carry. I moved out of the house that Daniel and I had shared for 20 years. It wasn't an impulsive choice, more like the closing of a book I'd read too many times. The memories in those walls were soft now, like pressed flowers, too delicate to disturb. I bought a small cottage by the sea. It's the kind of place where the mornings come slowly, lights spilling across the waves like melted gold, gulls crying in the distance, the smell of salt everywhere. Daniel would have loved it. Emily, too. The first thing I unpacked was her drawing, the one of the three of us beneath a dawn sky. I hung it above the kitchen window where the light touches it every morning. Beneath it, I placed Daniel's letter, framed in simple wood. 2 reminders of love and all the ways it survives. Every morning, I make coffee for 2. It's a small ritual, one I can't seem to let go of. I pour 1 cup for myself and 1 for him, just the way he liked it, black with a hint of cinnamon. Sometimes I talk to him while I drink, not in sadness, but in the way you might talk to someone sitting just out of sight. I tell him about the ocean, the neighbors, the stubborn seagull that keeps stealing my bread. And every now and then, I swear I can almost hear his laugh, that soft, quiet one that lived somewhere between apology and affection. A few weeks after moving in, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a local art gallery. They were organizing a community exhibit called Skies We Remember. One of the organizers had found Emily's drawings through a friend online and wanted to include them. I almost said no. The thought of strangers looking at her work, her dreams, felt too intimate. But then I remembered Daniel's words. She told me the sky never repeats itself. Maybe she'd want her skies to be seen. So I agreed. The exhibit opened on a cool spring evening. The gallery was small but warm, filled with the soft hum of conversation, the gentle creak of wooden floors, the smell of fresh paint and flowers. Her drawings were displayed on one wall, 20 skies in shades of blue, gold, and gray. Above them, a small plaque read, "Emily Carter, the girl who painted every morning different." People stood in front of her work for long stretches, silent. Some smiled, some cried. One little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve and said, "It looks like heaven." And maybe it did. When the night ended, the curator handed me a guest book. "People wrote messages for her," he said softly. I flipped through the pages, strangers thanking her for reminding them to look up, to notice the light, to believe in new mornings. My tears fell onto the page, but this time, they didn't hurt. They healed. That night, I walked home along the shoreline. The sea was calm, the moonlight turning the waves silver. I thought about how far I'd come, from the woman who once watched her husband leave without saying goodbye, to the one now walking freely, quietly, toward her own kind of peace. At the edge of the water, I stopped. The tide reached for my feet, gentle and cold. "Do you see this, Emily?" I whispered. "Your skies are out there. They're part of the world now." And maybe it was just the wind, or maybe something more. But I could have sworn I heard her voice again, faint and familiar. "Good job, Sarah." Spring turned into summer. I began teaching part-time at a local community center, art classes for children. I wasn't much of an artist, but I told stories. Stories about colors, about the way light shifts, about how even the darkest clouds hold pieces of morning inside them. The kids loved it. One day, A boy with paint on his nose looked up at me and said, "You talk like you know the sky." I smiled. Maybe I do. One morning, I woke before dawn. The world outside was silent. The kind of quiet that feels like the beginning of something sacred. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders and stepped outside, barefoot on the cool grass. The horizon was a soft, bruised blue. Then, slowly, the light began to rise, gentle, golden, unstoppable. The first rays touched the waves, turning them to fire. And that's when I felt it, that familiar warmth, that unexplainable peace. The same feeling I'd had in the hospital room the night Emily said goodbye, the same one that came when I read Daniel's letter. It was them. Not gone, just changed. I closed my eyes and let the sun wash over my face. For the first time in years, I said it out loud, not as a memory, not as grief, but as truth. I'm okay. The wind carried the words away, scattering them across the sea. Maybe to him, maybe to her, maybe to the sky that never repeats itself. As I stood there, the day unfolding around me, I thought of the title Daniel had written beneath Emily's drawing, "The Morning After the Rain." It wasn't just a name, it was a promise. Because no matter how hard it falls, rain always ends. And when it does, the world smells new, clean, forgiven. Later that morning, I made coffee again. 2 cups, as always. I placed one by the window next to the framed letter and whispered, "Good morning, my love." The light caught the glass, reflecting across the wall, and for a moment, the room filled with color. Soft, shifting, alive. It looked like one of Emily's skies. And I smiled, knowing that love, real love, doesn't need forever to last. It just needs the courage to begin again.